Welcome friends to my kitchen. What am I doing today? I already have sourdough breads, recipes and videos, but I am making sourdough bread. Today's Tuesday. I assemble my sourdough bread and then I keep it in the fridge until Friday, but actually I'm gonna bake until Saturday. But some of you have been asking, what kind of yeast do I use for sourdough bread? And I'm gonna show you what yeast and how you can make your own at home. This is my yeast. Look at this. I fed it last night. See all these bubbles? That's what you want. You don't need to have this much yeast when you make it, but I make a lot of sourdough bread and I need enough yeast. So I'm gonna make a recipe and I need 400 grams of this yeast. This is just made out of water and flour. So I use the scale because it's more precise. There is recipes with cups, but I use the scale because it's easier and more accurate. So anyway, I'm gonna make 2 batches of this. Okay, that's 400 grams of yeast. I'm gonna zero out again. If you don't have a scale, you can look for a recipe that has cups. So then now I need 1,300 grams of warm water. And this one is a little too hot. I am actually gonna put some more cold water. You want warm, you don't want hot. I warmed that one in a microwave and it's a little too hot. But I warm up because I'm gonna make 2 batches. So I need 1,300 right there. Okay, I'm gonna zero out again. And zero out is you want to go to 0. And I need 40 grams of salt. Okay, so we need 40 grams right there. And now I'm gonna mix all this. And then we're gonna add the flour. Okay, so talking sourdough bread. I start making this yeast. That's probably been already 2 years. And I feed it. Feed it means you put more flour. When you want to grow, you put flour. When you're not using, if you don't use it, you keep it in the refrigerator. You feed it and you keep it in the refrigerator. You want it to keep it alive. I've had starters that I've left in the refrigerator for 2 months, didn't do anything. Then I put flour and water and they grow. Okay, so this is all, it looks like milk. Okay, it's just like milk. And now we need 2,000 grams of flour. This flour I buy it at Costco. You want unbleached flour and you want bread flour. I tried with all-purpose. It does, but the bread flour does better. So we need 2,000. This will give me 4 loaves. 4 loaves of bread. And I had quite a few this week, so I'm gonna make it. And I'm just gonna use my hands straight. Spring, allergies come. It's one thing about spring. It brings the allergies. I've been having really bad cough. So anyway, like I said, I already have sourdough bread here. But I still keep getting people, how do you make that bread? Well, I have to teach you how to do it from beginning. And I already have a sourdough starter. But people these days don't want to be looking for things for the videos. They just want to right now. So anyway, this stays very different than our normal bread. It stays very kind of dry, kind of stiff. But then as the sourdough start breaking into the flour, it becomes softer. You don't want it too wet of a dough, because if you do, by the time you go and shape it and do your bread, it's going to be too wet. So, okay, this is how it is. You just wind all the flour combined. Okay, and then I'm going to leave this here for 30 minutes. The days are kind of warming up, 30 minutes, and then I'm going to give some stretch and folds, and stretch and folds is just flips, but I'll show you one set and then you can do the rest. I'm not going to record the whole thing because I already have a video with that. Okay, I'm going to put this aside and then I'll show you when I do stretch and folds. Okay. I've done all the stuff, all that I needed to do with my sourdough starter. I've used all the bread that I needed. Now I need to feed her and put her to bed. I'm putting her to bed in the refrigerator. She's gonna go to the refrigerator for another week because I bake once a week, so I wanna make sure that she's fed and taken care of. I don't even measure no more. I probably have a cup of flour here. And then you want some water. Probably half a cup of water. And like I said, I don't measure no more. I just do it by eye. But this is feeding your starter. Once your starter has been established and you have a good starter for your baking, this is what you do if you want to, once you want to keep it in the refrigerator. The day before I want to bake, I take it out, let it sit in the counter for a couple hours. Then at night, usually it's at night, I feed it. I do this again, and then in the morning, I'll be to the top. The more you feed it, the bigger it'll get. Now, some people could take some of this and leave it aside because you don't need all this all the time, this quantity for everyday baking. But I bake a lot, so I need plenty starter for me to start my baking. So, I mean, I could have just left a little bit, and then once I fed it a lot, it would be okay. I'm gonna clean my bowl because this is how far it came. It rised this much the day I feeded. So, and this is Angel. I named my starter. They say it's good to name your starter. I don't know. I named mine Angel. So, okay. You can also mark it, but I don't need to mark it. I think the last time I marked it was, in February. So now I'm gonna cover this, put a good cover, and this is gonna stay in my refrigerator for the rest of the week. So next week, when I need it, on Monday, I always bake on Tuesday. On Monday, I take this out, leave it on my counter for a couple hours, and then later in the evening, I feed quite a bit of flour and water, and then it'll be ready in the morning for my baking. But this one is going to sleep because it's done for this week. Okay, friends, it's my first stretch and folds. This is how my dough looks. And see what I mean? It was hard, but eventually it gets soft. They've been here for 45 minutes, and that's all I do. And I'm gonna do at least 2 more every half hour. I'm gonna do this 3 times. Don't have to, but I do it. Okay, that one is done. And this is all the bread that I have for my customers for this week. So, and you can make sourdough bread and then leave it in the refrigerator until you're ready to bake. The longer it stays in the refrigerator, the more sour it gets. Okay, this one is done too. And this is done. And this is what I do. That's why I like to do it early in the week. This one stayed a little bit drier. So I'm gonna get my hands in here. Anyway, and they're ready for another 30 minutes. I'll do 2 more, and then I'll leave it here for the rest of the day for them to double in size or until they fill up these pans. Once they fill up these containers, then I start shaping them. Good morning, friends. My bread stayed all night rising, and I'm gonna shape it. I'm gonna shape it, and then I'm gonna put it in a refrigerator, and I'm not gonna bake it for a couple days. So that's what I love with sourdough, is that you can plan this ahead and do this. I left it all night long because it wasn't ready. And then I don't like to put it in the fridge and then have to take it and let it rise again. It would take too long. So I just let it do their bulk ferment longer, because at night, the nights are cold. So anyway, and this is all the bread I have here. I have 12 loaves. I'm just shaping them, cutting them, and then I'm gonna weigh them. And then I'll shape them all the right way. And put them in the fridge. And then I don't have to think about it until when it's time to bake them. Usually I bake them on Fridays, but this week I'm gonna bake them on Saturdays. So anyway. So I need a scale. I need 900 grams of bread or of dough at this point. That's how much my loaves weigh, 900 grams. This is rice flour that I buy at Amazon. That's the best flour for this. So, anyway, okay, 0 out. There's a little bit more. Okay, this one is done. Put there, this one is done. I cut them all up first, and then this is right, and then that's when I weigh it. This is the one that stays softer. If it stays softer, you have a harder time when it's time to shape. Just kind of play it around with it. And all my bread is shaped. It's weighed, and now I'm going to start shaping. Flour all my bennetons with some rice flour because I don't want to stick in the bottom. And then I stretch. Don't have to stretch much because we're not putting nothing in it. And then I roll. And then I'm just gonna stretch this dough so it stays smooth. Sometimes I use my scraper. And being that this dough stayed a little bit softer, you're gonna have a harder time. That's why I said the dough needs to be a little bit harder. You have to follow the directions with the liquid. If you don't follow it, if you put more water, then it becomes unmanageable. Okay? But as you could see, when the whole pan fill up, that was just from the sourdough starter. So you know that my sourdough starter is really very developed. Okay, so, okay, I'm doing the softer ones because I don't want them to make it harder to stretch later. You want your top, this top, to be nice and smooth because that's going to be the top of your bread. Okay, so this is the first ones. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of flour so they don't stick. And then I'm going to stitch it. And all it is bringing all the sides to the middle. And what it does, it stretches so the bottom piece will be the top, will be nice and smooth. I thought I would never gonna get this, but once you get this down, that you learn how the bread, how the starter works and all this, you can make the most delicious bread. And then you can do anything with it. And it's so much healthier for us, this kind of starter, instead of that instant dry yeast. And as you can tell, my voice is hoarse. Every morning, that's how it is. It's all that bloom in California. Okay, a little bit more. I buy these shower caps that are specific. These are food shower caps. And I put them on each banneton with my bread. And they go in the refrigerator. I have 2 large refrigerators and I'm able to fit this quantity. Any more than this, I don't know. You don't have those bannetons because those things can be expensive. I just happen to have these baskets and I just buy these cloth linens at Amazon and that's what I use. I put it in a bottom, put some flour so they don't stick, and then we're gonna shape them and put them in here. Okay, so see this dough that stayed a little bit harder, it's a lot more manageable. So that's why I said you want to be precise with the amount of liquid. And that's why a scale is better than if you were measuring cups. So in no time, it is shaped. And all I'm doing is pushing this sides down and then rolling. See? And they're done. The reason that we do this by stretching and doing this, if you wanted to put stuff in, because a lot of them put different stuff in, like cheddar cheese and jalapenos, there's a variety of things you can put it in, then you would be able to do that. And I've done some videos here where you can see it. You can see me doing that. Okay. By doing this with this kind of bread, you kind of shaping the bread. You're kind of shaping the bread how you want it. Okay. This is the one that stayed a little bit harder, but it rises just as beautiful. I want these a little bit more on the long side than round like the other ones because of the baskets. So that's why I'm shaping them that way. Okay. You just fold them, roll them, and tuck them. It's like putting a baby to bed. And it kind of makes more even bread. So it looks, especially if you're selling, it makes a pretty bread. So I'm gonna sprinkle some flour on top. Because this dough was a little bit harder, it doesn't need to be tucked no more. And I cover, being that this is in a basket, I try to cover all the way to the bottom. So the whole bread is covered. I'm gonna do the rest of these. Then I'll have to show you when I bake them. Okay friends, it's day to bake my dip bread. It's a day late. I usually don't bake my bread this late, but something happened yesterday. I didn't have a chance. And I baking it today. So I'm gonna put it into parchment paper, all my loaves. These have been in the refrigerator for three days. So I have cast iron skillets in the oven. And my oven is preheating at 450. And we're gonna bake this for 20 minutes at the 450. And then we covered with a lid. Then we take the lid out and bake it for another 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes. So. Usually I bake my bread on the second day, third day, the maximum, early. But I didn't have a chance yesterday, and I'm baking it today. So I'm gonna spray a little bit of water, and that's more for that flour to stick. If you don't want the flour to stick, don't. I'm going to put a little bit more flour in certain spots. And the reason you put the flour is if you're going to do designs, the designs will show it through. Okay? And then I have my razor, or we call this the lame. And I'm going to do some cuts to make some designs. You don't have to, but it makes it so pretty. And then I'm gonna cut a big cut in the middle. And you wanna do this, because if you don't, your bread will burst and it won't look pretty. Okay, so I bake 4 loaves at a time because that I have 2 ovens and I have 4 cast iron skillets in the oven. So, I'm gonna wait till the ovens are ready and I'm gonna put these in for 20 minutes at 450, covered. Then I take the lid and bake them for another 10-15 minutes uncovered. Okay friends, time for put my bread in the oven. And now I'm gonna put the lid. Okay friends, my bread is done. And they're not as high as they usually get because I'm baking them a day later, so they overproof. So disappointed when you put so much work into it and then they don't come out as you hope. But I knew something was going to happen because I should have baked them yesterday and not today. So it is what it is. Okay friends, here it is, all the bread I made. These have a little height, not much. They're usually higher. And it is because they overproof. Because I was supposed to bake them yesterday, not today. But yesterday the day ran from me and there was no way I could do it. But this is a good example that if your bread comes out flat, I mean it might not look, but it is. It's a little flat because usually it really puffs up. It's because it overproof. If you leave it, like I said, I did this Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So 3 days. It's been 3 days in my oven. I mean in my refrigerator. So, but it tastes good. But this is a good example to show you once, if it comes out flat, that means that it's overproof. Or can also be that your starter is not fully developed. Anyway, here is the end of my sourdough, and hope you give it a try to do this. And until next time, have a good day.